When we talk about greetings, most people underestimate their significance. We treat them as social habits, automatic, polite, almost meaningless. But when attraction is involved, especially genuine attraction, a greeting stops being a reflex and starts becoming a signal. It carries emotional information. And if you learn how to read that information, you begin to see desire long before a man ever says how he feels. Think about what happens psychologically when someone matters to us. Our attention sharpens, our awareness heightens. We become more present in the moment because the moment suddenly has meaning. That presence changes behavior in subtle but consistent ways. A man who is truly drawn to you doesn't greet you on autopilot. There's intention behind it. He looks at you differently. His tone shifts. His energy slows down rather than rushing past the interaction. That's not strategy. It's emotional alignment. This is where narcissistic behavior creates confusion. Narcissists are often skilled at mimicking interest. They can deliver a greeting that sounds confident, charming, even magnetic. But the motivation underneath is different. Instead of responding to emotional connection, they're responding to how they want to be perceived. Their greeting is not about meeting you, it's about managing their image. That's why it can feel intense without feeling safe, engaging, but not grounding. A genuine greeting doesn't try to impress. It doesn't feel exaggerated or performative. It feels real because it's coming from someone whose emotions, intentions, and behavior are aligned. There's a subtle vulnerability in it. Not insecurity, but openness. He's allowing himself to be seen in the interaction rather than controlling the outcome. Narcissistic greetings, by contrast, often carry a sense of control. They're calibrated, they're watching your reaction. The greeting becomes a test instead of an offering. Philosophically, this comes down to the difference between expression and extraction. Healthy desire expresses itself naturally. It doesn't need to manipulate or provoke. Narcissistic desire extracts. It seeks validation, reassurance, or power from the interaction. And you can feel that difference if you stop focusing on the words and start paying attention to how the moment lands in your body. Do you feel calm, or do you feel activated, unsure, slightly off balance? Another important detail is that genuine greetings are emotionally economical. They don't oversell, they don't create confusion, they simply establish connection. Narcissistic greetings often do the opposite. They create emotional spikes, highs that feel flattering, followed by uncertainty that keeps you thinking. That pattern doesn't begin later in the relationship. It begins right here, in how he first shows up. This is why learning to read greetings is not about becoming suspicious or guarded. It's about becoming aware. When you stop dismissing these early signals as meaningless, you stop giving people credit they haven't earned. You allow behavior to speak before words ever do. So here's the reflection to carry with you. When a man greets you, ask yourself not how impressive it was, but how present it felt. Because real attraction doesn't announce itself loudly. It reveals itself quietly through intention you can feel. And the moment you start trusting that feeling, you stop chasing attention and start choosing alignment. Once you recognize that a greeting is an emotional signal, the next distinction becomes crucial: presence versus performance. On the surface, both can look similar. A man can sound confident, attentive, even charming in how he greets you. But underneath, the emotional quality is completely different. One is rooted in desire and connection. The other is rooted in image and control. And learning to tell the difference is what protects you from confusing intensity with intimacy. Presence is simple. It doesn't announce itself. When a man is genuinely attracted to you, his attention settles. He's not scanning the room. He's not half engaged. His body and mind are in the same place. There's a natural slowing down, as though the world has briefly narrowed to the interaction in front of him. This isn't something he's doing to you. It's something happening within him. Attraction has pulled him into the moment. Performance, on the other hand, is effortful. There's a sense that something is being delivered. Narcissistic men often perform because their primary relationship is not with the person in front of them, but with how they are perceived. Their greeting may be polished, charismatic, even impressive, but it lacks emotional grounding. Instead of presence, there's vigilance. They are watching your reaction, gauging their impact, adjusting in real time to maintain control of the interaction. Psychologically, this difference matters because presence invites connection, while performance creates imbalance. Presence feels mutual. You don't feel like you're being pulled into something. You feel met. Performance, however, subtly places you in the role of audience. You are not being engaged. You are being evaluated for response. That's why performance can feel exciting but unsettling at the same time. It stimulates, but it doesn't soothe. There's also an important philosophical layer here about authenticity. Genuine desire allows for imperfection. A man who is present doesn't need the moment to go perfectly. He's not curating an image. He's allowing the interaction to be real. Performance, however, cannot tolerate unpredictability. It needs the interaction to affirm the ego. So it controls tone, pace, and emotional intensity. That control is often mistaken for confidence, but it's actually insecurity dressed up as charm. This is why narcissistic attraction often burns bright and fast. It relies on theatrical moments rather than steady connection. The greeting feels charged, but that charge isn't intimacy. It's stimulation. And stimulation without grounding quickly turns into confusion. You're left wondering why something that felt so strong doesn't feel stable. Learning to recognize presence means paying attention to how you feel during and after the interaction. Do you feel calmer, more grounded, seen without being put on the spot? Or do you feel slightly activated, thinking about what it meant, replaying it, questioning yourself? Your nervous system often picks up on performance long before your mind does. The empowering shift here is realizing that you don't need to decode words or analyze delivery. You only need to notice whether someone is with you or performing for you. One creates safety, the other creates attachment without security. So let this be your anchor. Real attraction doesn't need an audience. It doesn't try to impress. It simply shows up fully present. And the moment you start choosing presence over performance, you stop chasing emotional highs and start opening the door to connection that see and actually hold you. Once you can tell the difference between presence and performance, the next truth becomes impossible to ignore. Desire reveals itself through consistency, not grand gestures, not perfectly timed moments, consistency. And this is where many women begin to see clearly what they once tried to explain away. Because when attraction is real, it doesn't arrive sporadically. It shows up reliably. A man who genuinely wants you does not need to reinvent himself each time he sees you. His greetings may evolve, deepen, soften, but they don't contradict one another. You don't feel like you're meeting a different version of him every time. There's emotional continuity. And that continuity creates trust even before commitment is ever discussed. You're not left guessing what tone you'll receive today. You're not bracing for unpredictability. Narcissistic men, however, often rely on inconsistency as a form of control. Their greetings fluctuate because their emotional state fluctuates. When they feel admired, validated, or powerful, they lean in with warmth and intensity. When that validation is no longer immediate, they withdraw, cool down, or become distant. This isn't confusion, it's regulation. They are using interaction to manage how they feel about themselves psychologically. Inconsistency keeps the other person engaged. The human brain is wired to seek resolution. When behavior is unpredictable, we try to find meaning in it. We analyze, we personalize, we assume responsibility, and this is how mixed signals gain emotional power, not because they're deep, but because they're unresolved. The greeting becomes the beginning of a cycle rather than the start of a connection. What's important to understand is that real desire doesn't need volatility to stay alive. It doesn't disappear when the novelty fades or when reassurance isn't immediate. A man who is emotionally available continues to show up even when there is nothing to gain in the moment. His greetings remain respectful and warm whether you're at your best or simply being yourself. That's not intensity, it's integrity. There's also a philosophical maturity in learning to value consistency over chemistry. Chemistry can be accidental, it can be situational. Consistency is chosen. It requires effort, emotional regulation, and genuine interest. When you start prioritizing that, your standards quietly rise. You stop being impressed by moments and start being moved by patterns, and patterns don't lie. If a man greets you warmly one day and treats you like an afterthought the next, that's not mystery, it's information. It tells you that his behavior is being driven by internal need rather than external connection. You don't need to confront it or fix it. You simply need to observe it honestly. This is where self-respect shows up in subtle ways. You stop over-investing in someone who is inconsistent. You slow your emotional pacing. You let his behavior catch up to his words or fall behind them. Either way, you gain clarity without losing dignity. So here's the reflection to take with you. Attraction that is real doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't rise and fall with ego. It remains steady even when no one is watching. And the moment you choose consistency over confusion, you stop chasing desire and start aligning with someone who actually knows how to show it. As you begin to value consistency, another layer of truth comes into focus, one that's often felt before it's consciously recognized. The body speaks before words do. And in the space of a greeting, body language quietly reveals whether a man is approaching you from a place of openness or from a place of control. When attraction is sincere, a man's body tends to soften rather than dominate. His posture is open. His movements are natural, unforced. He doesn't rush to take up space, nor does he pull away. There's an ease in how he stands and how he meets your eyes. That ease signals emotional availability. He's not guarding himself, and he's not trying to manage the interaction. He's allowing it to unfold. Narcissistic men, on the other hand, often communicate through subtle power cues. Their greetings may involve heightened intensity, exaggerated confidence, or controlled distance. You might notice squared shoulders that feel rigid rather than relaxed, eye contact that lingers a bit too long, or physical proximity that arrives too quickly. None of this is accidental. These cues are designed, sometimes unconsciously, to establish dominance or to test boundaries. Psychologically, this difference reflects vulnerability versus self-protection. Genuine desire involves risk. It requires a man to show up without knowing exactly how he'll be received. That uncertainty creates openness. Narcissistic behavior avoids that risk. Instead of vulnerability, it leans into control. If he can steer the interaction, he doesn't have to feel exposed. The body becomes an instrument of regulation rather than expression. This is why some greetings feel grounding, while others feel subtly unsettling. A grounding greeting leaves you feeling relaxed, respected, and present. An unsettling one may feel exciting at first, but there's a tension underneath it. You might feel watched rather than seen, pulled rather than invited. That sensation is your nervous system responding to power dynamics before your mind has named them. Philosophically, this distinction matters because real connection requires equality. Desire flourishes where there is mutuality, not hierarchy. When a greeting carries dominance, it signals that the interaction is about positioning rather than relating. And while that can feel alluring, in the short term, it erodes safety over time. Attraction without safety cannot deepen into intimacy. Another important detail is how boundaries are respected in the body. A man who truly wants you is attuned to your responses. If you lean back, he doesn't press forward. If you pause, he pauses. His body listens as much as it expresses. Narcissistic men often do the opposite. They push slightly past comfort to see what they can get away with. The greeting becomes a quiet negotiation of power rather than a mutual exchange. Learning to read body language is not about becoming hypervigilant. It's about honoring your experience. You don't need to analyze every gesture. You only need to notice how you feel in the interaction. Calm or tense, grounded or activated, those sensations are not random, they're feedback. So take this with you. A man who is genuinely attracted to you doesn't need to overpower the moment. He meets you in it. And when you start trusting the difference between presence and dominance, you stop mistaking intensity for intimacy and start choosing connections that feel as good as they look. By the time you've learned to read intention, presence, and body language, one pattern becomes painfully clear. Inconsistency is often the first sign that a man's attention is not rooted in genuine desire. Mixed signals don't start with silence, arguments, or withdrawal. They start quietly, often in how he greets you. And this is where many women get confused, replaying moments in their minds, trying to decode meaning that isn't meant to be understood yet. A man who is truly attracted to you greets you with reliability. He shows up with the same warmth, the same focus, and the same sense of presence, whether you see him once or many times. His greetings are emotionally coherent, even if they vary naturally with context. The essential thread, the intent behind the gesture remains steady. That steadiness builds trust before any commitment is made. You don't have to guess where you stand, his behavior tells you. Narcissistic men, however, often create confusion deliberately or unconsciously. Their greetings may swing from intense attention to distant or distracted. Today they appear charming, affectionate, and present. Tomorrow, detached or aloof. That fluctuation is not randomness. It's a subtle tool that manipulates emotional response. Your brain notices the inconsistency, and because humans are wired to seek resolution, you begin to invest mental and emotional energy trying to understand it. Suddenly, a simple greeting becomes a puzzle, and your attention shifts from observing reality to analyzing intention. Psychologically, this is why mixed signals feel so compelling. They activate curiosity, hope, and anxiety all at once. A greeting that is occasionally warm and occasionally cold keeps you engaged because your mind wants to find a pattern, even if that pattern is unhealthy. The inconsistency feeds anticipation and emotional investment, which is exactly what narcissistic behavior often aims to elicit. Learning to recognize this pattern early is liberating. It allows you to separate genuine desire from ego-driven attention. You stop interpreting every pause or change in tone as a reflection of your worth. Instead, you see it as information about the other person's behavior. Emotional stability becomes your guide, not uncertainty. Another critical aspect is pacing. Emotional inconsistency invites overinvestment. When you experience unpredictable greetings, it's tempting to lean in harder, seek more reassurance, and try to stabilize the other person. Observing patterns over time, rather than reacting to isolated moments, shifts the power back to you. You gain clarity without confrontation. You protect your emotional energy, while still allowing connection with someone who is consistent. Philosophically, this teaches a profound lesson. Attraction is not about momentary highs, but about dependable engagement. Real desire does not flicker. It grows. it shows up. Mixed signals are a red flag that attachment may be based on ego or need rather than authentic interest. So when a greeting leaves you feeling unsure more often than grounded, don't dismiss it. Observe it. Watch for repetition or inconsistency. Patterns reveal truth that charm and words cannot. And the moment you choose to honor patterns over fleeting intensity, you stop chasing emotional highs and start aligning with relationships that are stable, respectful, and truly capable of growing. By the time you've learned to read greetings, presence, body language, and patterns, one final principle becomes essential: trust patterns, not moments. It's tempting to be dazzled by a single greeting that feels perfect, magnetic, or full of intensity, but a single moment can never reveal the whole story. Desire, especially genuine desire, is not a flash of brilliance. It is a consistent thread woven over time. A man who truly wants you doesn't rely on one impressive gesture or perfectly timed greeting to convey his feelings. His attraction is embedded in repetition, reliability, and emotional coherence. His presence, his tone, his attentiveness, and his respect remain steady not because he is performing, but because his internal state aligns with his outward behavior. Each greeting builds upon the last, creating a foundation of trust and clarity that allows you to feel safe investing emotionally. Narcissistic men, in contrast, often rely on singular moments to create impact. One day, he greets you with warmth, charm, and focus. The next, he appears distant, distracted, or disengaged. This inconsistency creates a powerful illusion of desire, while keeping you off balance. Your mind clings to the high points, replaying them, analyzing them, and trying to reconcile them with the low points. The pattern is manipulative, not accidental. It draws you into emotional loops where you respond to unpredictability rather than reality. Psychologically, trusting patterns is about reclaiming your power. When you shift your attention from the fireworks of a single moment to the steady cadence of behavior over time, you free yourself from chasing fleeting highs. You begin to see reality as it is, not as you hope it might be. You no longer personalize inconsistency, you recognize it as information about the other person's emotional capacity and priorities. Patterns reveal intention far more reliably than isolated gestures. There's also a deeper philosophical layer here. Life is not built on moments, it's built on continuity. Attraction and connection flourish not in intensity, but in consistency. When you understand this, your standards elevate naturally. You stop being impressed by charm or drama and start being moved by presence, reliability, and integrity. You begin to honor your own emotional energy and boundaries instead of bending to the whims of someone else's unpredictability. Trusting patterns doesn't mean cynicism or detachment. It means discernment. It allows you to appreciate connection when it is genuine, while protecting yourself from manipulation or emotional volatility. It teaches patience, observation, and the importance of emotional alignment over performance. Real desire shows up repeatedly over time in ways that feel safe, steady, and affirming. So, the reflection to carry with you is simple but profound. One moment is not proof of intention, but a pattern reveals truth. When a man consistently greets you with warmth, respect, and attentiveness, you can trust his interest. When the behavior fluctuates, it is a signal, not a mystery. By choosing to respond to patterns rather than isolated moments, you stop chasing illusions and start aligning with connections that are genuine, consistent, and capable of lasting. That is the power of observation, self-respect, and emotional intelligence, and it is the ultimate key to understanding true desire.